Good afternoon and welcome to Supply Chain BR Raw. Let's talk labor, the race to recruit a skilled logistics workforce. My co-host this evening is Steve DeHaan, President and CEO of the International Warehouse and Logistics Association. IWLA's 360 members provide warehousing, fulfillment, inventory, supply chain management, transportation, and value-added services to North America. Steve worked his way through college in a warehouse, and he's been in the logistics industry for 32 years. And in his own words, I love this industry. Steve?
Good afternoon. And my co-host today is Robert Baldridge. He's president of Wilson Warehouse and Sabine Transportation, supporting Baton Rouge and East Texas manufacturers and distributors with warehousing, logistics, and transportation services. Robert's a graduate of LSU's engineering and business schools. Robert's been at the helm of Wilson Warehouse for 21 years, a longtime member of IWLA, and Robert's also served as president of the Southeastern Warehouse Association. I'd also like to introduce panelist Boyd Ammon, Vice President, Ammon Staffing, a family-owned business assisting clients through the state of Louisiana to recruit and staff their facilities for short-term, long-term, and permanent direct positions. Welcome, Boyd.
And I'd like to introduce additional panelist Trey Little, a consultant with Gallagher Benefit Services. Trey's experience includes plan design, pricing, budgeting, calculating claim reserves, and examining the impact of healthcare reform. With Trey today are Ron Laborde, client executive, and Matt Vignette, financial benefits consultant, both with Gallagher. Welcome, gentlemen.
Filling out the panel is Linda Mundinger, Human Resources Manager at Wilson Warehouse. Welcome, Linda.
We have a few questions prepared to get the conversation started, and welcome yours as well. Simply submit a question via the Q&A tool located at the base of your window. We have a jam-packed list of topics to cover today. I'll try to incorporate as many questions as I can before we complete our session on the dot at 12:55. If we can't get to all of the questions, we'll post them online and address them there. The first question I have, I'm going to throw out to Boyd and Trey. What is the current state of the Louisiana labor force emerging from COVID-19, and what economic factors are contributing to those forecasted changes?
There's a huge need for labor right now. The accelerated progress in the COVID vaccinations and the coming and current economic rebound in the United States is expected to see a huge rebound in the light industry in 2021. Many Americans spent their $600 stimulus checks from January on furniture, laptops, clothing, and the U.S. imported a record $221 billion worth of goods. That's before the round of the $1,400 stimulus checks in March. Many companies laid off their workers due to the pandemic and are needing to increase their workforce to keep up with demand.
From the benefit standpoint on this question, one thing that we've realized is a lot of the employers have started to rehire the employees that they did lay off during the pandemic. However, some of our clients have realized after the layoff that they don't necessarily need the workforce that they had prior and have managed with the layoffs, with the staff that they currently have in place, that they can do the jobs of several employees that were doing it in the past.
Thank you both. Next, I'm going to throw out to Boyd and Linda. What are the primary recruiting challenges organizations will face in attracting unemployed labor back to the workforce?
We're seeing some of the biggest challenges are actually getting them back into the office, interviewing, getting them off of unemployment. What kind of things can we do to attract our previous employers and new employees back to us? That's the big challenge right now, is actually just getting them to show up for interviews and to complete the applications and everything.
So how do we compete against unemployment benefits?
That's a tough one right now. The employee, they're receiving up to $547 a week. That's after taxes and unemployment benefits. They're getting $300 in the federal unemployment aid, and the state unemployment benefit for Louisiana is $247 a week. Total together, that's $547. At $15 an hour, 40 hours a week, that's about what they're making right now. That's in unemployment benefits after taxes. It's really hard right now to find employees that either paying them $10, $11, $12 an hour before to make what they are making on unemployment. You have to find some type of way to get them into your office, and what can your company offer at a lower pay rate that will help them out to attract them.
So from a benefit standpoint, one thing that we see is enhanced benefits, and that could come as a cost to the employer, but another thing that we see some of our employers doing right now is doing what's called a hidden paycheck, which is basically showing future employees and current employees what the cost of the benefits package that they currently offer. And that would include 401k, vacation, sick leave, cost of health insurance, and other insurance products.
Thanks, Trey. You jumped right into the next question. I'm gonna ask you about new regulations coming out of the COVID relief legislations.
Well, thanks, Robert. This is Ron. And I think one of the biggest things we've seen and the biggest disruptor was most recently with the American Rescue Plan Act, passed in March of this year. One of the things hidden in this act actually provides terminated employees with the potential for 100% subsidized COBRA benefit. The way this works, and a little bit of a disruption to employers for sure, is employees who were either terminated involuntarily or had a voluntary or involuntary reduction in hours, they are now eligible for a 100% funded COBRA subsidy for the months of April through September of 2021. Now, if you have any of these employees who elect this subsidy, you will be reimbursed via a payroll tax credit, so you can file that credit on your quarterly tax returns. It's certainly a little bit of a disruptor as well, because it did a couple other things with the employees. While it did not change the eligibility period for which a member can receive COBRA, it did give an employee a new election option. So for an example, an employee who had previously denied COBRA has a new opportunity to elect COBRA beginning, this past April at 100% subsidy. So certainly some disruption right there. There are a few caveats that will disqualify the employee. If the employee now has access to other group coverage or has access to Medicare, they will not be eligible for the group coverage. So this is just one of the big disruptors we've seen, and we lean heavily on our compliance department here at Gallagher to keep us up to date and push out this information, as we're always trying to see what's buried in these regulations and laws to keep you compliant as you navigate through these turbulent times.
And also, Robert, we would like to add too that obviously we suspect that we'll see some other regulations and legislation come through in the upcoming year.
So, Ron, if we had an employee who was laid off and denied and decided not to take COBRA, now he can come back and apply for it, and it doesn't cost him anything. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is 100% correct.
So one of the big incentives to come to join a company with health benefits is you get your health benefits paid for, right? Or part of them are partially offset. And whereas if you go on COBRA, you're on your own after, for 18 months or so. So this act reduces the incentive to return to work.
Absolutely. It absolutely does, Robert. It's just another challenge we're seeing employers battle is now, especially if they're looking at a new employer who maybe doesn't offer benefits or something, staying unemployed incentivizes them for COBRA, especially if you're looking at family coverage as well. And if you have a family on the plan as well, this is really a value add for an employee who's not employed right now.
And it also de-incentivizes them to look at the public exchange as an option as well.
Sure, of course, yeah. I'm going to turn this is dangerous. I'm turning the meeting over to Steve. Steve?
Thank you, Robert. Yeah, I just have a question, and I look at benefits relative to the personnel packages that we all pay, and we want to stay competitive in the marketplace. It always seems like my health insurance costs continue to rise at a faster pace than my other personnel expenses. Can you help me understand that?
Sure, Steve. This is Matt with Gallagher. So to answer the question, I'd like to touch on the 3 bullet points you see on the screen. So first, health insurance premiums are trending to a 7% annual increase. Unfortunately, it seems like the new norms, right? Kind of has been. So since 2010, for the last 10 years, premium for family coverage, that's for employees who cover themselves, spouse, and children on the plan, has seen an increase of over 50%. So we look to see what's driving those increases. One factor is inflation. If you were to take a look at historical year-over-year comparisons between health insurance premium and gross domestic product, you'll see a correlation in that both are on the rise each year. But actually, health insurance cost increases are outpacing the U.S. economy. So this tells you there are other things at play. One of the major contributors is the increasing cost of healthcare services, which happens to be driven by a few things in its own right. First, people are essentially living longer. So not only do we have an aging population, but we also have an expanding population. I think it's Generation Z, they're starting to enter the workforce. So add them and any babies that happen to be born, those are now becoming covered under health plans. From there, it's just a strictly numbers game. More covered lives leads to more utilization, having a greater chance of having incidents. You also have new sophisticated and advanced technology that's more costly to operate. This increases the costs associated with diagnoses and treatment of certain health conditions. There's also disease prevalence and incidence of chronic illnesses, which have been on the rise in recent years. Examples are diabetes, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol. Those are 3 of the biggest drivers there. 2 other factors happen to be the other 2 bullet points that I'll go over in a moment, one being ACA regulations, and then prescription drugs, specifically the high-cost drugs that are existing on the market. And finally, to a lesser extent, COVID-19 can't exit the conversation without being mentioned. It's partially to blame as well on why you're seeing premium increases each year. As mentioned a moment ago, ACA regulations have also had that effect on healthcare costs. The Affordable Care Act, they eliminated the elimination of annual and lifetime maximums have contributed to increases year over year as well. So prior to ACA, plans could set dollar limits on how much they would spend on certain covered benefits in not only the course of the plan year, but also the lifetime of the member's contract under that plan. So again, prior to Affordable Care Act, members with a chronic or catastrophic condition were required to pay the cost of care exceeding the limits that the plan was setting forth. This changed in the beginning of 2010 when ACA began to prohibit plans from setting those limits, the limits on actually essential health benefits. Essentially, it's a cause and effect. Because the shift of liability, the cost of the insurance has been tricking up as carriers became more reactive, and in a way, passing on the cost that they were receiving to the plan in the form of premium increases. And then finally, the final bullet point, which happens to be a hot topic of the last couple of years, and rightfully so, it's one of the biggest concerns of health plan sponsors, is the increasing spend on prescription drugs, with many high dollar specialty drugs on the market. Experience shows 5% of claimants typically account for 50% or more of claims. And the same would hold true towards prescription drugs, where a few typically account for the majority of spend. So just as the cost of healthcare services have increased year over year, so has the cost of prescription drugs. Over the last couple of years, manufacturers of brand and specialty drugs have increased prices anywhere from 1% to 10% each year. This is because when a new drug receives approval from the FDA and enters the market, the manufacturer is protected by a number of patents that protects them for so many years. This gives them market exclusivity to where they can exponentially increase prices year over year. The majority of high-cost specialty drugs on the market were developed for treatment of gene therapies and other rare diseases. So typically utilization is expected to be extremely low, less than 1%. But given the price tag of many of these drugs, a single use would financially break most plans. Today, there are a number of these drugs that are on the market exceeding cost of $1 million. The most expensive drug in the US carries a price tag of $2.1 million for treatment and was approved by the FDA in May of 2019 to treat a rare childhood disorder. Two other costliest drugs worth mentioning in the US that exceed $1 million were approved just last November. The reason this is relevant is because just like on the medical services side that I talked about in the first bullet point, increasing technology advancements lead to the discovery of new ways to treat patients. So you have increasing prevalence of rare chronic diseases added to that mix, and together these become trends that are placing a burden on insurers and PBMs, pharmacy benefit managers, that could lead to unsustainable effects on health plans. I'll pause there. I know this is extremely high level, but hopefully this sheds some clarity on why we're seeing price increases.
So now we know the reasons why the costs always go up, but what are some alternatives to us that we have that could affect or limit some of those cost increases, both in the short term and the long term? Are there things that we can be doing?
Yeah, so some of the things that a lot of our clients are doing, they're looking at different type of ways of funding their health plan. And obviously everybody's familiar with fully insured health plans, but we're starting to look at level funded health plans for employers between the size of 20 to 100. And then from employers from the size of 50 and above, we look at self-funding the health plan. And since ACA was passed in the March of 2013, there has been significant growth in self-funded health plans. It has gone from 2013 to around 44% of all U.S. health plans being self-funded to over 65% of all health plans in the U.S. being self-funded now. We also look at doing narrow networks to offset the increase of healthcare costs, and then again, kind of tagging into what Matt was talking about, getting tighter and more controls over the pharmacy utilization, which that typically has been the most significant increase in healthcare costs over the last 3 to 5 years.
Okay, very good. I'm going to change subjects just a little bit here, and I've got a question primarily for Boyd, I think it is. And that is, how can a strategic partnership with a staffing organization help to fill my candidate pipeline? I'm always looking for new people. How can I use you to help me find somebody?
There's a reason over 90% of the companies use staffing agencies for various hiring and recruiting needs. The business range from Fortune 500s to small businesses. They all see the benefits of outsourcing those responsibilities. Number one, we're going to save money. We're the employer of record for our employees that we send to you. So we cover the expenses of unemployment, workers' comp, employment taxes. We put it all into one single hourly bill rate. It's all those expenses are paid by us, the agency. It's our responsibility to make it. If someone has to go on COBRA, we have to put them on COBRA. If someone is terminated, we cover the expense of unemployment. Typically, we have another job to offer someone that's terminated through us to help mitigate that expense as well. When you work with us, you're going to have one bill rate, and you can easily tell what your expenses are going to be at 40 hours a week. So if you have someone at $15 an hour, a bill rate of $15 an hour, you'll know exactly what that cost is going to be at 40 hours at the end of the week. Number two, we're going to save you time. We're a recruiting agency, a staffing agency, and we have 10 people in our office recruiting 24/7, or not 24/7, but 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. Your office doesn't specialize in recruiting. We specialize in recruiting. You're not going to have to worry about completing all the unemployment paperwork, doing any HR, maybe a little bit of HR stuff with us, but mostly you're only going to have to worry about submitting time and supervising the employee while they're at their work site. We try to help increase your flexibility and productivity, especially right now with COVID. Many companies had to downsize and may have sporadic projects coming here and there. They may need to increase their workforces on what could be a temporary basis or long-term basis. They don't know right now. Going through us, you have that flexibility to hire someone for a short term, and if it turns to a long-term position, you can hire them on after going through our office. No one really knows what's going on right now with COVID. Everything is looking better, but there's a lot of challenges right now. We also provide guaranteed hires. If someone doesn't fit with your company for any reason, you call us and we'll release them or replace them at no additional cost. When you choose to move someone to your payroll, you already know the capabilities and the expectations of that employee when you put them onto your payroll.
Very good. Thank you so much. You know, I get a lot of questions from members that ask me, well, what staffing agency should I use? Because they get a lot of choices out there. There's a lot of things out there. You know, what criteria might you suggest that they sort of put on their list as to how they select a staffing company and so that they get the right one for their particular company? What would you suggest?
You got to make sure they specialize in your niche. Do they work in multiple logistics facilities? Are they a day labor staffing agency? For those that might know, a day labor is an agency where you can literally just pull up a truck and pick up 5 guys and go to a job site in the mornings. Do they do interviews? What kind of specialized staffing do they do? We provide logistics, medical, and light industrial type positions. So that's really our niche. You're gonna need to know how they find their talent. Do they post all the job boards? Do they have a presence on social media? Do they have a lot of referrals? A majority of our employees that we place at job sites are referrals from other employees that have worked through our office before. You're gonna have to assess how happy their internal employees are. You can tell a lot by the tone of someone's voice on the phone. Are the internal employees in the office overworked? Is it the same person always on the call? How many employees are successful employees? You got to make sure they're established. How long has the company been in business? There's hundreds of staffing agencies starting every day. You're going to want to make sure that they have been in business long enough to understand the industry in your area, and they have a big enough pool of candidates to service your needs.
Okay. Thank you. Robert, we're back to you.
All right, thanks. I've been getting a lot of questions on the Q&A, and I thought before we get too far down the road, we might address a few of them. A couple of questions have to do with marijuana. You know, the newspaper in Baton Rouge today mentioned that they're looking at decriminalizing recreational use of marijuana in Louisiana. What's going to be the impact on hiring? Drug testing before we hire, which will be a legal substance. However, it's not legal to be high at work. How does the drug testing, Boyd and Linda, how are we going to handle that going forward?
I mean, if you're impaired at work, either alcohol, any type of drugs, marijuana, you're impaired, you can't work like that. Right now, I don't believe there's drug testing that can tell how high the levels of marijuana are in your system. It's still legal to terminate someone if they take a drug screen for you and they're high.
Linda, we've run into this before. I mean, there are levels that are detectable, and we often have to decide, well, is that affecting them? Are we going to a system of not drug testing, but impairment testing?
Impairment testing will get very subjective. And I don't think
I think we may have lost Linda because she was getting some feedback there. I think it's an ongoing question that we're going to run into because we have DOT regulations that have specific thresholds. Go over the threshold and you can't drive. So it's a big issue, and one I think that Steve and IWLA is going to have to address for its warehousemen pretty soon. You know, our warehousemen are driving 5,000-pound weapons with 2 forks in the front, and we have to be overly confident that they're not impaired. Linda, are you going to try back now?
Is this better?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I think basically with our safety programs, there's just going to be certain things that a impaired individual cannot do safely. And we've seen a lot of drug tests coming back with marijuana. Unfortunately, that's not the only one. We've seen cocaine. We've got an opioid epidemic going on still. And so marijuana is not the only thing that we have to be concerned about. In our safety programs, really safety does have to be first. I keep emphasizing with our employees that this policy that we have as a company is not a lifestyle policy. It is a policy to keep our employees safe. And that includes the individual who's using and their coworkers and the general public in many instances.
Okay, thanks, Linda. Also on the maybe the same topic is of bringing people back to work was if somebody, the question is, next month Maryland is reinstating work search requirements to continue to collect unemployment. Is that going to happen in Louisiana? And what do we do if somebody is not actively looking for unemployment for employment or is refusing to recall?
I would like to mention something with regard to the unemployment. I think there's been a lot of, at least in Louisiana, a lot of the Workforce Commission staff went home during the pandemic. They didn't have access to their records, to the systems, and to the things that we turned in for people who left. And I've noticed an uptick in the number of unemployment inquiries I get for people I've never heard of. And as an employer, if you don't respond promptly to those, you could be seeing an impact on your insurance ratings, because it's important to make sure that the workforce commissions and the unemployment offices in your states have the accurate information to go from. However, Louisiana's Unemployment Commission has really been struggling to stay on top of this. I received a call from someone from their home in Lafayette, Louisiana. They were trying to help out the Baton Rouge office. And they had not gotten any of the stuff we had sent them. So they're at home, they're not accessing some systems, and that can create a lot of confusion. I know it's created a lot of heartache for the unemployed who aren't getting payments timely when they're deserving of them as well. But employers can really get hit hard if they don't stay on top of this one.
Okay, thanks, Linda. I'm going to get back on the list that we have, and the next question is for Steve. How can outsourcing my warehouse labor to a third-party logistics partner support my staffing needs?
Well, I'm going to bounce back to the unemployment question real quick, because yesterday, or actually earlier this week, we sent letters to every member of Congress. We sent letters to every staffing person of the committees that involved labor. And we sent letters to every state governor relative to the $300 federal increase on the unemployment rate, so that we can get our workers making, it makes a harder decision to come back to work. And so we really would like to get, we're facing labor issues all the way around. We think that's a contributing factor to their not coming back to work. And so we're trying to address that. And we're seeing success in those states that have decided to not pay out the federal $300. So we're trying to promote that agenda as we go. And why should I use a third-party logistics partner? Well, for one thing, we're talking a lot about labor here. And one of the things that a third-party logistics warehouse does is because it has multiple customers and clients within a building, it's able to do some labor balancing. So each one of them have different timeframes of work, et cetera. And so what you do is you get your full-time labor force. So you get a very talented person, both working on your particular product movement, as well as great supervision of those that are moving your product. So you get a really great thing as a customer. You always get that experience, that trained, that trusted labor, and you always know that it's being supervised by somebody who's already been there. So instead of your having to recreate it or having to bring it into your own facility or wonder how to do it, you always have that trained management and that trained labor always contributing to the movement of your goods in the manner that you want done. And not only that, but you don't have to think about when to hire and how to hire and go through all that process. Your 3PL does that for you. You put your KPIs into your performance contract, and the third party and the 3PL becomes responsible for hitting those KPIs in the movement of your goods and how you want to see them processed. And the other thing that you get, because there are multiple customers in a building, the 3PL often has a higher level of automation and technology in the movement of your goods and how it's all handled and done. So you have this relationship with staffing companies, and you have these relationships with truck brokers and all of these things. And you have all these relationships that contribute to the success of the movement of your goods in a timely fashion. And what happens is you get it for less cost, less headaches, but you have a higher level of reliability. So there's a great reason to partner with a 3PL in your staffing needs and working with a third-party logistics warehouse.
Thanks, Steve. Next is for Linda and Boyd. What are the advantages of different hiring models? Temporary, contract, full-time, temp to hire, direct hire, and how do I know which is right for my business?
Honestly, it just depends on what your needs are at the time. If you need temporary help at a work for a short-term project, then a temporary hiring model would work best for you. That would be a short-term project. You'd have employees for a couple of days, couple of weeks, maybe a month or two, and it's just that short period of time. Unemployment would go on us, and we would be in charge of letting the employees go if there's a situation or anything. If you have a long-term project, it's an indefinite project, maybe a temp to hire solution might be best for you. With that situation, you have a long-term temporary that's working for you, and then you can actually move them onto your payroll at no cost after a certain amount of time. If you're looking for like an immediate need and you have a position open for that right now, a permanent placement or direct hire would probably be the best one for you. Typically, those are done with higher skilled individuals.
Thanks.
One of the things we've noticed also using temporary employees, it gives both the employee and the employer an opportunity to see if it's a right fit. We also have a number of employees that have come through us through the temp services. And so they will see other people in our organization who were interviewed and then subsequently hired. We make sure we don't tell them it's an automatic flip at the end of their hours of service, that we actually go through a hiring process and we look for the most qualified, best skilled person for that position, but they certainly will have a leg up on someone that we don't know from Adam. However, we have times when we will have employees who might be a candidate to go through a temp agency, and we've from time to time referred them to Boyd to payroll for us, but they need benefits. And so that can be an issue if you go with temps only and you've got people out there who really need those benefits. And let's face it, benefits add to the bottom line. They can enhance in the mind of the employee the position. they get a little bit more for it than just a paycheck, with the benefits of being a full-time employee. But yes, it does take a lot of staff time and effort to recruit, to interview, and to bring on a full-time employee. And sometimes you may, either from staff shortages or from time constraints, see that a temp solution is the best for the immediate need.
All right, thank you. The next question is really for Steve and Linda and perhaps Trey. What additional on-the-job training will I need to provide to ready my workforce for emerging marketplace expectations? So Steve, I know that IWA has a whole training program to bring up warehousing professionals. We have safety training, we have BOP and those things. Steve, why don't you start us off? What does IWLA offer to bring employees up to speed?
Well, you're correct, Robert, and we offer a lot of different kinds of things and kinds of things that we change. And I'll just take our economics course, which is a ratings course, and then I look at what the changes we're seeing in the marketplace. And when we see warehouses built with higher ceilings, and we see double deep racking systems, and we do all those things, it requires a different way of rating and costing out your services out there in the marketplace. And you have some customers that are going to want you to do that. Well, how do you know whether that's cost effective or not? And where do you go with for the training programs? And what are things? And we look at safety as being one of the big things that we want to make sure that we have. That's why we have a huge safety and risk program. And that program is actually put together by our affiliated insurance company that handles warehouse type claims. And so we get a lot of it coming from that, and it really works extremely well for us. But it comes down to, you need safety of your people, you need safety for the product that's there, and you need safety from your equipment operations. And so you got to keep, when you think of training and bringing in your labor force in the emerging marketplace, nobody wants an accident in their warehouse operations because it costs money beyond just the cost of the accident or the replacement of the equipment. It costs all the downtime that you have from all of your employees talking about it, all the safety meetings you have to have thereafter, et cetera. So it's important that we focus on safety out there relative to that. The other side of it is a lot of the work for the emerging marketplace expectations are set up by our customers. So it's really important that we understand the KPIs and the job performances being placed on us. You can't get to that level if you don't have meetings with your staff in the warehouse to talk about what those expectations of success are. And you have to paint that picture appropriately so that your customer is served. So you've got this emerging marketplace expectations depending on the new product, the new customer that's coming in, as well as everything that you have to add to your current customer base. So you typically always have to take a look at that. And of course, we offer the Essentials course. We have it in the legal arena. We have it in the economics arena. And we offer our technology courses, et cetera. And so we have lots of issues out there that we can help. But seriously, I believe that emerging marketplace expectations, twofold here. One is going to your employees when you have a new customer and talking to them and finding out how they think it's best to serve that new customer and trying to prepare the workforce. Use your existing workforce to prepare for your new workforce in regards to that. And the other side of that is for a 3PL that's looking for new business, you need to get out into your community and see what's really happening out there and see where the market trends are going relative to product, et cetera. And that's who you should try to go after in your business development sections. And both of those are emerging marketplace expectations, and you can use your people to chase after both of those things.
Thanks, Steve. Linda, we're pretty well documented through ISO on our training, and we have a a well-tracked system of bringing new employees on and maintaining annual certifications. But what's changing? What do we have to change? What do you see changing in our training regimen?
Well, I really see that we're going to have to keep it up. It's an ongoing thing. It's a not just a one and done. Training needs to really be ongoing, not just because we have turnover sometimes, that means new people need to be trained, but because there are oftentimes parts of a job that are not done every day. And our employees need to be reminded what the procedures are, what the policies are on an ongoing basis. One of the things we feel about safety is that the more you talk about it, the safer your workforce will be. It will be in the front of their mind. So we try on day one, we do an extensive training with every person that comes on board. And that means every temp employee that comes in as well. They get a first day, boots on the ground training with regard to our safety programs. And we re-emphasize that on an ongoing basis. We have daily meetings, lean meetings in our warehouses that have safety topics. We have monthly safety topics, part of our safety program. So training should not stop after they've learned their job. The jobs these days keep changing because the customer's needs keep changing. And so you want your workforce to be ready for the unexpected. And to do that, you've got to stay on top of training and have those conversations. So we have a pretty extensive training program, and not just for the workforce itself, but supervisors, managers as well.
Thanks, Linda. I'm going to turn it back over to Steve with the caution that he has 5 minutes for the next 3 questions. But he needs to turn on his mic if he's going to, you know.
With that, let's just kind of go on to the next slide. But what are some of the creative and out-of-the-box ideas for recruitment? Trey, what kinds of things do you see out there that's happening in that area?
So first thing is technology. You know, a lot of these young, new employees are all into technology. So, you know, online benefits portal, online website, listing of the benefits, use of apps with their health plan, dental plan, benefit structure. And then a lot of our surveys and benchmarking data has shown that, you know, the Gen Z is looking at, you know, kind of different unique benefits, such as student loan repayment, tuition reimbursement, dependent care spending accounts. And even some of these, as maybe strange as it seems, they're interested in pet insurance, long-term care insurance, legal protection, and then identity theft.
Very good. You know, I actually added to that list a little bit. You guys mentioned the self-insured market a little bit, and the members that I have that have the self-insured programs often couple it with a wellness program and gym memberships and those kinds of things, smoking cessation. They have a nurse come on site, you know, maybe 2 days a week or so to meet with people who have chronic issues, et cetera, trying to give them relief, et cetera. But they'll do just about anything not to spend any insurance dollars. And that's really kind of the secret to it. They don't want to get tied into that insurance arena. So that's a great idea. And all of those have great benefits for the recruitment side as far as providing people inside the organization. Let's go on to the next slide. You know what? This is maybe for Linda. What are some of the strategies to encourage and reward candidate referrals from my current employee base? Linda, you're muted. Linda, you're muted.
We've used a number of different referral things over the years. There are a multitude of things you can employ. one of the things we like to think of is that we're a family organization, not only in the front office, but throughout the warehouse. And so we want employees to refer people they would like to work with. But there are also reward programs that you can consider. Anything from cash cards to Walmart, or special lunches, or an extra bump in their paycheck. So there's a wide variety of things that are out there. The sky's the limit.
One of them that I have on my list is you get an extra day of PTO. That way I don't have to go beyond my budget, and yet it's of value to the person, okay? Particularly if they're a relatively new employee and they don't hardly have any time off. So it's a good way to go. Let's go on to the next slide. This is for Trey and Robert a little bit. How do I competitively differentiate my employer brand to highlight our cultural strengths and benefits? I mean, how do I get my name out there to my labor base and the people I'd like to get to?
You know, I think that it's important that you have a good place to work. A good place to work. You know, I saw a video of the president recalling his father telling him that a job is not a paycheck. He said, I'm quoting, he said, it's dignity, it's respect, it's a position in the community. You know, at Wilson Warehouse, we say we are stewards of goods and community, and stewards of goods pretty easy to understand. But what is stewards of community? Community means the community of your coworkers, the community of your town, your location, your area, your neighborhood, and so our folks like to make the world a better place. They like that the company is part of Baton Rouge Green. They like that the environment that we have. We try to build affinity with our employees, and Linda said that we get a lot of referrals from our current coworkers because we try to create an environment that's pleasant and a good place to work and a place they can be proud of. And I think that that's probably key here. I mean, we can work the money, we can work the benefits, but in the end, you want to feel good about going to work and who you work for. And I think that's how we can use our culture to set us apart from competing employers.
Yeah, and Robert, I'll just add too that, you know, with the culture, you know, tying that into the benefit structure and, you know, taking care of your employees and showing that you care about your employees, you know, with respects to the benefits and, you know, that you offer and the compensation that you offer to your employees as well.
Okay, I have a couple of questions left that have been submitted, and we only have a couple of minutes here. One of them is what is going to be the effect of automation on employment in our industry? You know, we hear about robotics, and we hear about back in the day it was automated storage and retrieval systems. What about forklift drivers? And I'll direct this to Steve. How do you see automation affecting warehouse employment?
It's definitely going to have an effect. And again, you know, I related some of the new high-rise buildings that are going up as much as 65-foot ceilings. They're using lift systems in those. That's all automation and technology. They're working the bugs out of it. There's a couple of, I know of one that's already up, and I know of a couple that are being built at the current time. Those are tough systems, you know, to learn and to get going, et cetera, and to make ends meet. But yes, they are going that route, okay? And I mentioned all the challenges that come to a warehouse, not just from putting in those systems and having that building, but also how you cost them out, et cetera. It takes a lot of professional expertise in those systems. And most of them are being built in Europe. So all of your customer service and all of your support comes over from Europe. So you have to be a little bit careful in those systems, but you see it. We also see a higher lift, high-lows coming in, the fact that there are lots of safety issues the higher you go with your forklifts and your handling there. It requires more training, et cetera. Requires lots of issues like that. You really have to be careful of your weight limits on your shelf, on your racking systems, et cetera. And so we see a lot of that going on, but everybody's trying to get more in their warehouse. Everybody's trying to move more goods, and everybody's trying to stay away from having to develop new real estate if at all possible. So we see a lot of the automation push going on right now. And particularly after COVID, when all of the warehouses were extremely full, they really had to work at how do I move my goods faster and safer. So it's been a big challenge over the last year and a half.
Thanks, Steve. A companion question is about what is labor going to cost? If you're getting $15 an hour to stay at home and 15 hours for unskilled labor, what is a forklift driver going to earn in the future? And of course, the great thing about that is the market's going to determine that. But when it comes down to automation, now you have to say, if my forklift driver is making $25 an hour, do I really need him to ferry stuff back and forth in the warehouse? Can I get a semi-automatic system where I have a robotic transfer vehicle in my building to move stuff from the back to the front? Do I really need a driver for that sweeper? Can that be automated? Where are wages going? I think we're all agreed they have to go up. We'll have to see on that. The final question was, is the $300 federal subsidy going to be extended beyond September? And I don't have an answer for that. If I did, I would be a political consultant on that. I'd like to thank my panel. What a great job. What a panel of talent and knowledge to bring to it. We put up their contact information, and we're going to post this webinar online for people to view and to get the information from. I promised that I would get everybody out of here by 12:55, and if my phone had a movable clock, I would subtract 2 minutes from it and say I had met that. So thank you all very much for participating, and I hope to see you at our next webinar in August, which will have to do with financing your expansions. Thank you all, and have a good day.